Good morning and happy November. Welcome to the November 1st meeting of the Citizen Oversight Board. We've got an interesting agenda today. We've got a few folks who have joined to provide public comment during our meeting. And so we'll get started there. We don't yet have a quorum of board members, so we'll work through board business as soon as we do. Just a couple of notes. There is still one vacancy that the on the COB that the mayor's office is working to fill. So if you know someone who's a good fit, please encourage them to apply. Additionally, the next board meeting is November 15th. The board is actually meeting on the 16th to do strategic planning. So we're going to cancel our 15th meeting. With that, I think we will, we're also joined today by Chief of Police, Ron Thomas. And we will get to questions with the chief in just a minute. But first I will turn it over to our guests. Miss Holly Elkface is there somewhere behind Daniel's picture.
I'll get that set up here in just
okay.
One moment, please. Delete.
Good morning. Go ahead and speak when you're ready.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's
Good morning,
everybody again. My reason here today is still about my son, Waylon John. And we haven't heard anything about the situation that had happened to my son on November 3rd. And we still haven't received the police reports, and the camera footage is what we were waiting for from Jeffco and Denver. It's going to be a year on the 7th that he passed in Denver City Jail. And also, I would just like to see if we can still get that report. My lawyer, Sandra Freeman.
She's on the call here. We can,
Okay.
if you'd like her to chat, I can try her.
Yeah.
There we go. Go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
Introduce yourself while
I'll come in, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joseph Chase. I am another attorney here in Denver, Colorado that's working with Mix Freeman and representing Miss Holly Elkface in this matter. Like she said, I know that this board has limited powers, but getting body cam footage and the police reports through the your authority in the Office of the Independent Monitor is something we'd like to pursue and see if we can get any help there. The other issue that we'd like to bring up is the fact that the Office of the Independent Monitor closed the investigation based on one police report one report from the Internal Affairs Bureau at DPD. And the most troubling part about that is that there's no reference to anything or any investigation of the Denver Sheriff's Department, where even if the initial injury occurred under someone else's jurisdiction, Mr. John was in the care of the Denver Sheriff's Department for much longer than he was in the care of DPD. So it's disturbing that the Office of the Independent Monitor basically only looked at the very beginning portion of this issue before closing the case. So we wanted to make sure that we could note that for all of you, considering that you directed Ms. Holly Elkface to deal with the Office of the Independent Monitor when she first brought this to your attention. And again, see if we can get your help in getting the police reports and all the body cam footage from the arrest. It's in DPD's possession.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Chief Thomas, I don't know if you're aware of this case, but if there's anything you want to engage on here, feel free.
I have very little awareness. It sounds like it was a death that occurred in Denver Sheriff's custody. I would imagine we have some reports as it relates to initial contact, and so I can talk with our Bora coordinator on the release of any documents that we have.
Thank you. And perhaps you all can provide Chief Thomas with the reference number or the case number in that case. And then Monitor Crittenden, I don't know if there's any information you can provide on this call to our guests here, but happy to have you follow up.
I not aware of this one. I didn't know that they were going to be present. Otherwise, I would have done some research ahead of time to look into the case. But I can tell you that the OIM we did not conduct an investigation. We oversee the internal affairs investigations. So the people that actually conduct the investigations is the police department and the sheriff's department, which is through the Department of Safety's AIU unit, which is an administrative investigations unit. And so they conduct the investigations, and what we do is we monitor the investigations in order to look into how, what the investigation is, if they're covering the different areas, and then we make recommendations to them regarding their investigations and then the closure of the case ultimately. I don't know the details of your case. I don't know if you all have been in contact with Liz Perez-Castle, who is the independent monitor. But it's something that I would definitely reach out to her on. But it's unfortunately one of those situations where, I think someone has told you that I guess we conducted the investigation and closed it out. And we don't have that ability to actually conduct the investigation and then close it. We do have the ability though to oversee it and look into the case. And I don't know what information you all have actually been provided.
Well, I'll jump in right here, sir.
Yeah.
The letter from Ms. Castle states that the complaint was closed on October 22nd, 2024. And based on the internal affairs report from DPD, and like I said earlier in the preamble, I understand the authority that your office has to supervise. The problem being that there was only an investigation into DPD's conduct and nothing from DSD.
All right. And just to let you know, sir, we don't supervise. We don't supervise them. We are an independent agency from them. It sounds like from what you're reading that the case was closed at that time, which means that the Department of Safety with the police department and or sheriff's department closed the case.
I understand that part, but in reliance on a truncated investigation is what I'm saying. And that's the trouble. And I understand your authority. I get that. I'm saying that they only looked at chapter 1 of the story, not 2, 3, and 4.
It's quite possible that those incidents were looked into. I just don't know without any more information. And so, again, this is something that's been sprung on me today, but it's something that we can look into.
And I'm just to chime in, I'm fairly certain that there's a separate investigation. The DPD does their own has an internal affairs unit and an investigation process. The sheriff's department has a separate process for their people. So it's really 2 separate cases, one for the sheriff's side, one for the police side.
Well, I appreciate you making your point, our point for me, that why did the OIM even respond if DSD had not completed its investigation?
There would be 2 different closure letters in that case.
Sure. Much appreciated.
And so
I appreciate that clarity.
And Ms. Freeman, who's also on the call, I don't know if you want to chime in. I was under the impression that you had spoken with Monitor Castle in the time.
Separate complaints were submitted to both DPD and DSD.
Yeah.
So then that would mean that there are 2 separate investigations going on that we would be monitoring. And once again, the DPD part was done, but the sheriff's department case, I don't know what's going on with that, what information they have. So it looks like there is different chapters, as you put it, being reviewed and looked at.
Well, that I appreciate, because assuming that the monitor, the letter from the monitor saying that basically they were done investigating didn't, I assumed that that was for the whole, the entire section of the entire incident, but I
Gotcha.
have clarity, but thank you.
Right. So I got you.
Okay, so it sounds like perhaps Chief Thomas can help with body cam footage where it's available through the Cora unit. And Daniel, if you want to point them to the relevant party at the Sheriff's Department, perhaps that's useful as well. And we appreciate, I think, the follow-up on this. I believe you all visited us when we were meeting with EDOS Saldate, and I brought this up to him after the meeting. And so I think it's worth a follow-up there as well. Is there anything else we could do to help here?
I think Mix Freeman wants to speak, but I'd like
Go
to,
ahead.
there are pending core requests to both DPD and DSD that they can reference as well, but yeah, Ms. Freeman would like to speak too.
Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you all for meeting with us again. Good morning, Johanna, Miss Holy Elkface. It's good to see you. We appreciate you all making time for public comments and doing the job that you do. This has been an ongoing issue, and just to point out that the Citizens Oversight Board did have concerns about death in custody a year ago and those not being adequately reported. It's been a bear to get information, and we understand and respect that there are administrative investigations that need to happen. That being said, there have been core requests submitted to both agencies. There have been complaints submitted to the OIM regarding both agencies. OIM Perez Castle did contact me in the summer saying that she would be happy to meet with Miss Holy Elkface and family. I then sent complaints and a request to meet with her, and the complaints were resolved very quickly, and she went out of town before that meeting could happen. And so there is a thing that is happening here that is, I think, is important for you all as we know that you cannot adjudicate this case. We know that you cannot award, we're not asking for judgment in something that you are unable to do. But it is important for you to know in the ways that the oversight mechanisms are failing specifically Ms. John, and are failing multiple people when there are multiple jurisdictions involved or agencies that can say, oh, that belongs to them over there. No, that belongs to them over there. And everybody's pointing fingers at each other, but there is absolutely no transparency actually as to what happened to Mr. John. We do have independent lay witnesses, not police or sheriff's witnesses, not body cam, who have told us about the brutality that Mr. John experienced on the streets of Lakewood from Denver officials. And so we're going to continue looking at this. I would ask you all to consider the request regarding the issues we've had with Cora, and with the reports and body-worn camera, and to consider how this is, the process here is maybe not working, even though that you all have the best of intentions in your interests, and we appreciate the job that you do. That there is something that you all have noticed too, and we're affirming is not working here. Thank you for your time.
Very much appreciate your comments, and having worked in government a long time, I think one of the most frustrating experiences for a constituent, regardless of the circumstances, is getting tossed back and forth between agencies with very limited information. So I appreciate in this case, it regards a matter of a loved one, and so that must be exceedingly frustrating. So very much appreciate that. We will take an action item to follow up on this matter. It sounds like Chief Thomas can also follow up on the Cora side. We will provide you the right contact on the sheriff's side as well, and we'll see where we can get from there. I think the monitor will be back in town in a couple weeks, and so we'll make sure that that meeting takes place.
And I'll also touch base with her on this case to make sure that this is something that she's able to meet with Ms. Freeman, Mr. Chase, and Ms. Holyoke on, so we can try to provide more transparency on the process and what's going on and our involvement in it. So I'm sorry to hear that there's been all this confusion going on.
And thank you for showing up again to advocate for what you need. Certainly the board provides a forum for public engagement on concerns. And so I just really appreciate you showing up and communicating with us again.
Yes, and can I say something?
Of course.
I'm gonna keep on going forward on this because that was my son. And the police officers took his life from me and his 3-year-old son and our family. You know, that's not right. He wasn't ready to leave. He wasn't ready to go like everybody else goes, you know, when it's their time. Or something like this that happens when his life is being taken. You know, we have witnesses in Jeffco that were there and seen what the officers did to him and then hand him over to Denver Police Department. Why would they do that? He didn't have a warrant in Jeffco. He didn't have a warrant in Denver. It was in Adams County. But still, why would they want to hurt a human being that, you know, can't defend himself against these 4 grown men? I mean, that is so wrong to do that to a human being, take somebody else's life and not knowing that he has children and has a family. We're Native American. We don't do stuff like this. We don't take somebody's life from everybody because, you know, of doing one little wrong thing or one word saying out of place. We don't hurt people like that. We're here for a reason. And his life was taken too short. On the 7th will be a year, and he died on his youngest brother's birthday. So I've been doing my best through the whole year. We have our own Native counseling and ceremonies and that we put out every month, you know, to help us to go forward and be at peace. But you're never at peace when your child is gone. When he's not here no more, not even for the holidays, not even for his birthday. And that's not fair. I just want something to be done, and I want to hear about the camera footages. That's the law that they have to show that we asked for. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for your clarity and the time.
No problem. Please be in touch. We will communicate with you about what we discussed today, and hopefully you'll get the camera footage in the short term. Appreciate it. All right, I believe that we have a quorum now, and if board members might turn their cameras on, that would be helpful. Okay, let's move back to board business. As strange as that feels. Okay, so a few things related to board business. First, if I can have a motion to approve the minutes from October 18th, that would be great.
I move the approval of minutes for October 18th.
Great.
Hope I get that right.
That's right. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Great, thank you. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Uh,
Oh, this was a approval. Yeah.
It's okay, you can be against the minutes too if you'd like. All right, so I think that is the primary board business. And Daniel, I understand that we were to have additional guests. Are they on the line?
I believe so. Here, one moment, please.
Okay. Okay, I see Sean Herman enter the call. Hi, Sean.
Hey
Uh,
guys.
Are you joined by anybody else or just you today?
It's just me. There was gonna be a couple of us here in like the neighborhood just to ask some questions, but apparently they got swamped with some meetings or something like that. So I just wanted to kind of tune in real quick. I don't necessarily know the format of this meeting, so apologies for my ignorance
good.
on that. I think what, and I think we gave a letter to you guys, but really we're over here. I'm an owner of the corner property on 13th and Osage. We have the Domo owner who owns Domo. Oh, George is here. Hi, George. George is on the board of directors with Domo, and I can let him talk after I'm done talking because he's the one that wrote that letter, so he can kind of be a little more specific. But I think yeah, we're trying to do a lot of really cool stuff here. Me particularly, I'm trying to build a handful of businesses that are catered to families of all ages here in Denver, Colorado. Doing some creative stuff, doing some stuff that you can bring your kids to. It's a family business. Me and my wife have invested into this property significantly. All of our own money, no investors. And what we've been dealing with a lot with lately is like every day I bring my kids, here with me. Well, not every day, like on the weekends they'll be here, but they're at school downtown. But it's like I show up and there's defecation in my like entryway that I have to step over. There's people across the street looking at me like they're wanting to kill me or something. Like there's usually tents like within like 10 feet of my property. So I think like a giant concern and is just like the homeless problem that we're dealing with right now. And I don't feel like safe around here, especially with bringing my 9 and 11-year-old here. And so I just kind of wanted to voice those concerns and see if there's any plans to, you know, get some of this stuff cleaned up around here from like a city level. I'm also willing and able to help, obviously. Me and my wife were born and raised in Colorado, so we have a lot of pride in this city. And also, since we're funding this entire thing ourselves, we get, I would say, once a month a break-in that, costs us between $20,000 and $50,000 each time. So it's becoming a significant burden on us financially. So we're kind of just looking for support. And that's just kind of me personally. And I think, George, you could probably talk to a little bit more about the block. We just purchased this property December of last year. So we've been in it almost a year now. George has a little bit more info on like kind of the past up until this point, but I just want to voice my concerns about the present because it's getting pretty tiresome.
Go ahead, George.
Thank you. One correction, I'm not a member of the board of Nippon Con. I am a volunteer advisor. And as you well may know, Nippon Con is a 501c3 and also hosts a Japanese country food restaurant. The issue is that in addition to the increased camping and gathering of unhoused people, there's an increased drug use and hostilities and those kinds of things, including threats with guns, gunfire, break-ins, all kinds of things. We're well aware that the Citizens Oversight Board doesn't make policy and doesn't do kinds of things. And what we're trying to do is engage the city and the police department into having a plan to deal with this. Since the closure of La Alma Lincoln Park, the situation has gotten rather dire, and the CoLab housing has had incidents with their students. NipponCon and Domo have had threatening incidents, gunfire, damage to the property. Sean and the new Colorado Dance Studio, which has children coming in, have had all kinds of problems. We're well aware that these problems are not unique to this neighborhood, and that the city and the police department have a gigantic challenge in dealing with these. We appreciate the steps that are going, but what we're asking for is your support in engaging the police department in the city to come up with a plan. And as Sean mentioned, the neighbor in that area, the property owners and business owners have spent a lot of time, money, and effort in trying to deal with this, and they're quite willing to do other reasonable things as well. But it seems to us that the only way to resolve this and get rid of some of the dire threat that these neighbors are undergoing is for the police department, the city, everyone to come together and have a plan. So that's essentially why the letter was written. And that's what we're asking from you, is support, maybe a little bit of direction about whom to talk to, how to get this effort started. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and sorry, it's been really tough in the neighborhood that you're invested in. The chief of police is on our call today, so that's very helpful. Chief Thomas, I don't know if you've got thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, I actually do have a few things to say. First, I am in receipt of the letter. You all provided that for me. I'm also aware of the fact that that letter has reached the mayor's office and his staff. And we have actually been convening with Councilwoman Torres about the challenges in the La Alma Lincoln Park neighborhood, and have dedicated some resources and some efforts there to address the challenges. Understanding that there are some other city resources that need to address some of the challenges that are presented by the unhoused. And so what I can share is that there is a pretty significant plan being developed. I think that maybe Councilwoman Torres can help convene a meeting with all of the city entities and those concerned in that neighborhood to include the group that's online today, so that we can really roll out exactly what that plan is. And really what the plan entails is, what I like to, refer to as more of a investment rather than an enforcement strategy. Certainly we will enforce where it's appropriate, but I think what is most needed in this area is investment and those folks that are challenged with their unhoused status. I know that there is a plan to locate housing for them. I think that's one of the challenges when we identify encampments or groups of people in a community that are unhoused, is trying to find stable places for them to be. So I know that effort is underway right now. So I think that will help us considerably, and then give us greater capacity to address the drug dealing, some of the other things. And so what I can say is that we are very close to putting together a very comprehensive plan in coordination with all the other city entities, and we can certainly plan very quickly, I think, to talk about it.
Awesome.
And
Thanks
the other thing that I'll share too is I sent your letter that has, I think, a lot of the contact information that you all provided to Lieutenant Aaron Robertrano, who is kind of managing the project for Police District 1, which is where this area resides. And he will probably be reaching out, I would imagine, sometime in the very near future.
Awesome.
John or George, follow-up questions or?
Well, first, thank you, Chief. I think that's exactly what we're looking for. We know that this is not a unique problem and that there are other areas. So I know that you have your hands full, but we much appreciate the getting together all the resources, all the departments.
Yeah.
That would be involved and coming up with some sort of a plan. And as I said, all the neighbors have done things on their own, and are willing to participate in a coordinated effort. So thank
Right.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I just second that. Thanks, Chief. And I will say too, just kind of a shout out to a couple of the officers in District 1. They've been really responsive and helpful. So I just want to give you a little positive note too.
Thank you. Good to hear.
All right, well, thank you for your comments and feedback today. Obviously, a good discussion on a possible plan. So we're certainly happy to follow up with Chief Thomas to understand sort of where that plan takes shape and when. Don't hesitate to reach out with additional questions or concerns. We're happy to.
Oh, one last question. Could I get the spelling of the officer that's in charge of that for that police district?
Yeah, so it's Lieutenant Aaron, Aaron Rebetrano. So that's Rebetrano.
Repetera.
ANO.
Yes. Yeah, Rebetrano.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. I'm really pleased to have folks engage on the call today. Pre-COVID, we used to have a lot of public comments, so it's good for folks to be here and appreciate you reaching out in the letter that you wrote. So thank you very much. And do be in touch if you don't mind. And if you're all set with your comments, Sean and George, feel free to drop off. With that, Chief Thomas, I know we provided some questions to you in advance of the meeting. So if you want to start working through those questions, we'd appreciate it. And a reminder, as always, please read the question and then answer it so folks watching from home know discussion.
Sure, no problem. So the first question is, what is the current status of the BolaWrap pilot program? That's actually quite easy question to answer. There is no BolaWrap pilot program. We did demo that less lethal option. I didn't care for it. I thought it was very cost prohibitive. I thought that its usefulness in an urban environment was limited. And so we watched the demo and that's been the last engagement that we've had with BolaWrap. The second question is, what is the current status of DPD's drone program? And so I will say that, really it's in its infancy. So we established a policy to use drones, I think in April of this year, and understanding sort of the flexibility and the efficiency in multiple situations of using drones. And so we currently are using drones in certain situations, that being search and rescue missions, documenting crime scenes, monitoring crowds during large public events, doing traffic investigations. It's also helpful, as well as being deployed in tactical and SWAT operations. And those are always situations where we have an arrest warrant or a search warrant to enter. So using indoor drones to safely, enter and do searches and things like that. And so, as I think you all are probably aware, we are moving towards a drone as a first responder program, but that is not launched yet. We're really just kind of in the infancy stage. So I think if I go through some of the sub questions, I think that'll help kind of everyone understand where we are with our drone program. So how many drones does DPD have now? We have 5. So we have 2 indoor drones and then 3 drones that are useful outdoors. How many times in the past month have drones been used in a first responder role. Again, we are not yet prepared to use drones as first responders, so we haven't deployed any drones in that capacity. How many times in the past month have drones been used in other roles? And I discussed a little bit some of those other roles. And in the last month, we've deployed the drone 10 times. And then just from the beginning in April, when we launched the program until today, I think a total of 48 times. And so those are kind of a combination of SWAT operations where we felt it was necessary and safe to deploy the drone, or patrol officers requesting a drone and then having it launched to assist with a search or something like that. And so the next question is, are you able to share the drone, the implementation plan? And so as you know, we established a policy in April. We have had a number of demos from a number of people that sell drones. So about a half a dozen vendors we have had demos from, just to see what their product can do and identify pricing. At the same time, we have provided a drone demo for City Council, and also done some public engagements where we have demonstrated the value of the drone. And then, you know, I think what we're looking forward to is maybe an early 2025 launch of drone as a first responder program. But before we do that, we're going to have to identify, you know, where we would have docking stations. You know, are we going to have them on district stations or some central location like headquarters? We have gone through the steps of training a number of drone operators. So we have a number of, I think about 17 DPD staff right now that have the licensing in order to operate a drone. And so that's kind of where we are now, continuing to use the patrol led and sort of tactical operation deployments of drones, but do see a significant utility in using drones as a first responder, so that we can, I think certainly it can lessen our response times, because we can respond very quickly, and then even more importantly, I think, is determine the most appropriate level of response. So, you know, in a certain situation, do we just need one car? Do we need 10 cars? Or maybe do we need no cars? Because it's clear that there is no need for police in a current situation, or maybe it's a situation where a star van is the most appropriate response. And so I think we see significant utility there. That's why we're looking forward to ultimately being able to launch that program sometime early next year, hopefully. Can you please provide an update on your efforts toward creating a pool of community members to participate on the use of force review board? So I think as folks know, there have been sort of a ongoing rotation of just a couple of people on civilian members of our use of force board. We have added one person to that rotation, and we are currently vetting 2 more people to serve in that role. As you know, we've made some attempts to add to that list. We've solicited assistance from City Council, assistance from a number of community boards, both at my level and at the districts. We even thought that maybe we would get some traction from a story that Chris Vanderveen did, where you know, I was very open about our desire to have additional people placed on this list, and even, you know, contemplating some sort of stipend for serving in that role. You know, certainly not something that I'm closed off to, but I think something that merits further discussion, whether or not we would want to provide a stipend for that. I mean, I think the infrastructure is there to do such a thing, but whether or not that's the direction that we, I think as a city, maybe even you as a oversight board would want to go. So that's where that is.
Just a quick follow-up on that, and I see Stefan has his hand up. Go on, Stefan.
Thanks, Julia. Chief, I know that there've been a lot of challenges in trying to get appropriate candidates to put their hands up to try to fill those positions. Remind me though, is it an unlimited term to serve in those roles? Is that why it's been sort of interminable for people to stay on there for a really long time, or are there sort of terms to serve on that board?
Well, so there's no term limit currently, but I think the challenge is that it's a lot of work. You know, there's a lot of video to review, a lot of documents to review, and so there is a time commitment. And I think that we were lucky very early on that the folks that have been serving the longest, that just happened to be an interest of theirs. And so I think that's why they have continued to be engaged. And I think just finding someone that has that level of interest and is interested in donating that much of their free time in order to review multiple videos and reams of reports and paperwork. Been the challenge, really. So but we're undeterred. I mean, we're going to continue to certainly this group is certainly encouraged, I think, to recommend folks to us that we can vet and see if they would be willing to serve in that capacity.
How much time, Chief? Typically, I know maybe it depends on how many cases are before the board.
Yeah, I mean, well, I would say, Commander Hans Levens, who is the chair of the Use of Force Board, could probably give you a more accurate answer. But I mean, I would say, probably between 20 and 40 hours of time. So I would say multiple days spent reviewing lengthy videos, body cam videos, other videos, videos of officer interviews, potentially suspect interviews, witness interviews, plus very detailed investigative reports put together by our multidisciplinary investigative team. So I don't want to understate the amount of work that it would take for somebody to donate in order to be prepared for, to give an honest assessment of a situation.
20 to 40 hours over what time period, Chief?
I mean,
or is that per case?
I think that's per meeting. So, so I think what happens is we kind of wait for investigations to be completed, and then once we have completed investigations that we can hold a meeting on, I think that's when we send them the information for them to review and kind of give them a time frame when we are going to hold the meeting. But I think we give them considerable time to so it's not like we're sending them reports on a Monday and having a meeting on a Friday and giving them 5 days to review potentially hundreds of videos and hundreds of reports. So we're giving them a significant period of time, but it is, again, a time commitment. Even if you spent just a couple of hours a day, it would take a number of days, I think, to get through all of the material that we're sending out.
Would it say, sorry to keep harping on this, I'm just trying to get in terms of talking to people who might be interested.
Yeah.
I mean, would it be 20 to 40 hours, maybe a month? I just don't know how many cases.
No, I mean, I would say it wouldn't be a month. I mean, it would be because we probably only convene the board a couple, 3 times a year. Thankfully.
Oh, really? That's okay. All right.
We don't have a lot of police shootings.
All right.
What they are doing. And so it wouldn't be like a monthly thing that we would be engaging in.
Okay. All right. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Bina, go ahead. I see you have a question.
Yes. So Chief Thomas, this is Rufina Hernandez.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about, is there any criteria other than the availability in terms of their time? Is there any other criteria in which you're determining the membership on this board. I recognize the fact that this board has been rather intact in terms of those two civilian board members, so it may not have been, a case where you're having to do this very often. But now that we are in this situation, is there any other criteria that you're evaluating?
So, typically what we do is we do a background check, and then a previous, I think, consideration was that they attend one of our citizens academies. But now that we hold our true citizens academies far less frequently than we had in the past, I think, we are still holding community academies, but I think we've kind of shifted to holding, academies to try to recruit women and people of color and people in certain communities. So we've kind of removed that as a sort of qualification, understanding that we can kind of get people up to speed and to understanding department operations and things that we think are important for folks to know and understand before they start evaluating the appropriateness of a use of force. So I can probably get those specific specifications from our chair of the use of force board, and then send them to his body so that that can be part of your
Yes, that would be great.
Okay.
That would be great. But the other piece is that obviously this is a very challenging role, for a civilian person who doesn't have any background. So what kind of onboarding do you intend to have for these civilian board members?
So essentially the onboarding would just be, giving them just an understanding of our operation. So we would make sure that they are well versed in our use of force policy, some of our deployment strategies as it relates to crowd control and things like that, and just an understanding of similar to what we would be demonstrating and showing folks in a community academy. So the onboarding process is not a lengthy process.
Okay. And the reason I ask that is because I can imagine that a civilian coming into this may not feel totally adequate to evaluate, given the expertise that the police members of the board have. And so we need to, in some fashion, and I don't know the answer necessarily, but in some fashion, give them continuing kind of information, training, et cetera, so that they can build their expertise separate from the police members. Because what typically might happen, I would say, and I've seen this happen on other boards, is that they defer to the expertise that's in the room, which is one of the reasons they don't like attorneys and juries, because they're afraid the attorneys would, take over the process, and then,
Sure.
people are just going along. So what is your thinking in terms of trying to equalize that expertise for these civilian members?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement, and and certainly we do try to make every effort to keep them abreast of new policy changes, new approaches to addressing use of force. Obviously, when we changed our use of force continuum, which I think informs what levels of force we use in certain situations, depending on the level of response that we get from a subject. So we're keeping them up to speed as to what rules that we are having to adhere to, as well as what the current laws are and best practices. Quite frankly, I think the other thing that is important is we don't necessarily want or need them to be experts. I mean, certainly we want them to have an understanding of what what the law is and what our, what accepted practices we have to fall within, policy. But at the end of the day, I think that we want them to use, the concept of reasonableness in order to determine whether or not they believe, with reasonableness being their guide, that the officer's response was not just within policy, but appropriate.
Thank you.
Other
Sure.
questions on this topic? Okay, go ahead, Chief.
Okay. Have you finished the process of updating the templates for complaint closure letters? Yes. We've already begun using that new template. The template that we created, we have had that looked over by the city attorney's office, as well as the chief compliance officer that's assigned to the director of safety's office. And so we are sending that letter. We are also, I think, kind of the sub question there is, do those letters include the related discipline order? Yes, they do. And understanding that the OIM also sends a separate letter. And so yes, we are sending a much more detailed letter to complainants so that they understand the outcome.
Okay.
And then the last question is, how many officers does the DPD expect to have hired by the end of 2024? And quite frankly, I expect that number to be very close to that 167 that the mayor budgeted. We have nearly 100 officers that we've hired so far this year. We have another class that will be seated in December. And we're working very well with the new executive director at Civil Service, who is I think really involved in a lot of process improvement. So we feel very strongly that we'll be able to have probably close to 60 recruits in the December academy. And so I think we're going to get very close to that 167 number.
Thanks. I have a question unrelated to this list, which
Sure.
is something that somebody asked me about in the past couple of weeks, which relates to sort of unfettered access to information. And one of our recommendations in our 2023 report was that the DPD should begin sharing footage related to use of force incidents with the OIM.
Yes.
And just wanted to get your perspective on sort of where is that in the process and what's.
Yeah, so I mean, that request actually reached the executive director's office. I think that request was denied. And the reason for that is because every time there is a complaint related to an application of force, we are opening a case. We're putting all of that video into iPro so that they have access to that. But we don't believe there's a need. There's already, I think, a significant oversight process internally so we're not just sitting around waiting to see whether or not there's a complaint. We are actually reviewing video to determine ourselves whether or not there is need to open a complaint based upon the video that we review and reports that we receive. So we think there's a process in place already without overburdening the OIM with videos on every single application of force. I think we're a little bit different, I think, from the sheriff's department, where one, I think they have fewer applications of force, and two, they don't have as robust an oversight process as DPD does. So I think that's ultimately what Director Saldalte took into consideration when he responded, I think, to Independent Castle.
Thanks. Yeah, I think certainly your rationale makes good sense, and the community could understand an opportunity there to cherry pick information that's provided to an oversight body. So I think the biggest risk there is, Perhaps you're acting with goodwill, but another, leader of the department could select what's shared and what's not in those cases. Okay. Other questions? I know we're sort of coming short on our time with the chief. Other questions from the board for the chief while we have him?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Chief.
Good morning.
I'm wondering if you've stood up a particular tactical group to deal with any protest or related issues for the election?
Yes, good question. So in fact, I briefed Mayor Johnston just yesterday. So we've actually been preparing for what may happen after the election since early this year. So we, in fact, all of the safety elements, so police, fire, sheriff, our emergency management staff met with a federal body. So the Naval Postgraduate School, they have an office of national defense that they go around and they help train entities in how to respond to terrorist attacks and other multi-casualty, multi-threat situations. And actually this year, the exercise that they facilitated for us was an election-related event. So we've been training on it since early this year. We've been meeting on a weekly basis with the elections division to put together a very robust response plan. We've even had those sort of frontline elements that are going to be responding to anything that would happen on election day or beyond. They've gotten training from the Secretary of State to understand election laws and how we can respond and should respond in those situations. On election day, we will have full staffing in all of our police districts. We will have our SWAT team, our SORT unit, our entire intelligence team that will be monitoring all over the city, monitoring both online and just kind of locations where demonstrations tend to gather. So we'll be monitoring that. There are going to be officers assigned to all 37 of the polling places for the duration of the time that they are open. We'll have a command post here at headquarters, another command post over at the elections division building, and we will also have a presence over in the city and county building in their Office of Emergency Management. And certainly have thought through some of the potential things that may happen. There's been absolutely no intelligence to suggest that anything is going to happen on election day or beyond. We continue to monitor that, but so far there's been no threats of anything. We do know, though, just because of the volatility of the situation, that there could be bomb threats, that there could be suspicious powders or objects, left at polling places. And so we have gone through those scenarios with the elections division, understanding that we will coordinate with them, whether or not it's the evacuation of a building, moving a polling place from one site to another, or whether we're going to just do some site protection. Obviously, if there's a bomb situation, we would be the lead in that in responding to that. We will have bomb dogs that are going to do continuous sweeps around all 37 of the polling locations. If there's a substance, then obviously we would defer to Denver Fire as to how to best respond to that situation. And then we certainly have MOUs in place with State Patrol and Arapahoe County. If we were to need a mutual aid response, I actually don't anticipate that. You know, we've managed hundreds of protests since 2020 without incident and without having to call for additional resources. Now, I certainly don't expect anything to happen on election day because I don't know that the results of the election are going to be known. And so we're also prepared for post-election. So again, we will, for a number of days after the election, we will have full staffing in all of our police districts. The same elements that will be available and patrolling the city, watchful for you know, the gathering of demonstrators and things like that. They will be available as well. We've also identified investigators to help with mass arrest processing. I know the sheriff's department is ready for an influx of prisoners should there be some mass arrest situation. And so even though I actually don't suspect that there will be any significant incidents on election day or beyond, I think we're well prepared for that.
Okay, great.
You're welcome.
Other questions from the board? All right, Chief Thomas, thanks so much for meeting with us. I know we met recently, but we got the front of a quarter and the back of a quarter connected. So nice to see you on the regular. With that, feel free to drop off and we will turn to the monitor's office. Deputy Monitor Crittenden, do you have any matters to discuss in the public realm? Perhaps he wandered away. And I can take that as a no. Board members, do we have any additional discussion topics for this meeting? Okay, without indication from the monitor's office on the need for, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, just wanted to flag or make space, I suppose. Rufina recently did visit the 911 call center and the downtown detention center. And so if there were any takeaways or anything that she wanted to share with the board, I just want to make sure.
Great, thanks for bringing that up.
Not a requirement, Rufina, just.
No, it's just very impressive. The dispatch center, you know, I had no idea how extensive that operation is. And I'm very, very pleased that we have such a, what I perceived anyway, to be a well-organized and well-run organization, agency. And the dedication that these people have to this job, which is very challenging. Very interested also in going to do the tour on the county jail. I just did the detention center, but you know, it just does increase your awareness and insight as to how complex all of these aspects are that keep, you know, that are trying to work towards our safety and everything. So that's my takeaway. I really appreciated the time because I'm one that has a lot of questions. So they spent a lot of time with me. So
thank you. Appreciate it. And thanks for spending the time doing that. Monitor Crittenden, I see that you are on the line. Do you have matters to discuss?
Sorry about that. I was fumbling with a mouse that's running low on batteries. So I'm trying to start the video and unmute myself. I have nothing to report on publicly at this time.
Okay. Do you have matters to discuss in an executive session that relate to ongoing or investigations or matters of deliberative privilege?
I am available to answer any questions that you all might have on those matters.
Okay.
I don't have anything directly that I was told to report on.
Okay, all good. Board members, do you have items that you would like to discuss with the monitor's office and in an executive session?
I do not.
All right, well, we'll give it, folks back a little bit of time then today. And we will see you in 2 weeks for our strategic planning session. I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a good opportunity. And just a note to folks, we have put an informal dinner on the calendar the night before. So if you'd like to attend, I think some delicious tacos are in order. And so not required, but optional if you'd like to be there. Cool. With that, see you folks in a couple of weeks.
Nice weekend.
Have a great weekend.